This is an RNZ podcast.
Hi, I'm Catherine Ryan, and welcome to It Takes a Village. Each week I talk to parenting experts, authors, psychologists and others about the trials and triumphs of raising a family. You can listen on 9 to noon on RNZ National every Thursday about 11:20 or right here on this podcast. Enjoy. The internet is a rapidly changing space where adults can have trouble keeping up, let alone kids. Algorithmic manipulation, marketing profiles, fake news and unpredictable AI future are pretty much affecting us all. And the information available to make sense of it usually isn't aimed at kids. The very ones, my next guest says, who are set to inherit the internet and the world being shaped by it. Dr. Niraj Lal is a Melbourne-based researcher and writer who's also host of the ABC's kids podcast Imagine This. He has a new book called Behind the Screens, which explains the ins and outs of how the internet works, aimed at getting kids thinking about how they use it, who they interact with, what data is being gathered about them. Niraj is with us now, and thanks for that. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
So who did you have in mind when writing Behind the Screens?
I had in mind that generation of young people who are yet to be sucked in by the internet like we all, the adults are. So those who are yet to be echo chambered and polarized and finding their way through various rabbit holes on the internet. And I figured if we can give them some information and empowerment before they get a phone, before they get online, then they'll be in such a better place to be able to make better decisions than kind of the generations before them. So it was very much the generation about to jump online and get their first phones or get their first devices.
So sort of age 9 to 13. I know it varies hugely, but some of the kids are nagging before 9. Some manage to sort of keep a little offline to 13, but that's the sort of age group in mind.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's happening earlier and earlier. I mean, it feels like a standard-ish kind of age group is just after you finish primary school and before you go to high school. But we're knowing that young people are getting access to devices through their learning, through schools are putting more and more educational programs on tablets, on devices. So, yeah, I think it's important to help them skill up as they're experiencing the net, but no, certainly the book's aimed for those who are just about to get their phones and just about to jump on the world of the online and socials and all the rest of it.
How have you approached them in terms of how to do this? It's interesting that it's not just all beware or, don't do this or do this. You've gone back and explained how the internet works. And is it important that this is an engaging approach, a constructive approach?
So. Yeah, I think there's real danger when talking to young people to get into finger wagging mode. And like I do that with my own kids and they're like, you can see their eyes glaze over. But I think if we can be really honest about what's happening online, give them the real information and, respect their ability to understand it, then I think it leads to a better conversation. If we can do things together on the internet, I think that's helpful. It's a funny thing that all the scrolling that we do and all the stuff that we do online, it's really personal. If anyone's looking at our phones, we're like, hey, what are you looking at? But we don't have those shared experiences of how to be on the online space. I remember growing up with an older sister, and I kind of watched her interact and like, that's what you do in that situation, that's what you do in this situation, and kind of like learnt it. But we don't do the same thing on the internet, and maybe there's an opportunity to do some of that together, to game together, to be online together, just to show them how to be.
So some of the foundation things about the internet works, how the internet works, you pick them, but obviously things like cookies and metadata, for example, the fact, and I think a lot of people found this hard to believe until we'd used it enough, it's incredible how unbelievably detailed and also how comprehensively, in the end, we are tracked on the internet. So how do you explain this to kids, both how it happens? There's no real anonymity, frankly, both how it happens and why it matters.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's changing. I mean, the internet's changing really quickly, but some of the principles behind it aren't. And so we go a bit into the book with as much clarity as we can. So talking about the difference between data and metadata. So, if you send a WhatsApp message, Meta or Facebook, the company that owns it, says that they won't read your message and hopefully they don't. But they do track and they do read when you were when you wrote it, how long it took you to write it, who your contacts are, how many times you wrote it and erased it. All of these different things are where you that build up this ecosystem of data about you, metadata about you, and builds up your profile that helps them track. Oh, well, who can I get to advertise to you as you're on Facebook's other profiles or other parts of the internet and make money from it. So we talk about how that works, like the nuts and bolts of it, um, and step them through. And I think young people get it. They're like, they're actually part of the book was. As I wrote the book, I talked to a whole bunch of young people across Australia, and they're really savvy. They're really insightful. They kind of get it. The kids are going to be okay, but I reckon if you can give them some tools and some awareness about what's going on, then they'll be in a better place.
So that also, they're possibly at an age where they're not being hit every 5 seconds with advertising. It's interesting, I had a 20-something email in when we were talking about the amount of gambling ads that are just shoveled at guys his age and his profile, and he was annoyed about it. He said, I don't even gamble, but I cannot go anywhere online without having this shoved at me. But these kids are kind of just a little bit ahead of that happening, or are they? Like, again, how do you go ahead?
Yeah, I don't. I think they're seeing so many ads, like way more than when we grew up. They're like in train stations now. There's screens everywhere. But even online, whether you're banned from having an account or not on YouTube or something, you are being subjected to a whole bunch of ads. And so online, they're really tailored to you. Like on TV and stuff, they're kind of they're less individually tailored. But it is a different world when we enter the online space when ads can be incredibly micro-targeted to you, and that's how it's how Google makes their money. Like they get paid every time you see an ad, and then get paid even more if you click on it. And it's there in their interest to make put ads in front of you that you click on and that you're interested in. And it can be really lovely and really useful and helpful. It's like, oh yeah, I do need a new pair of runners or whatever it might be. But we're giving away something, and I think it's helpful to be aware of that.
Now, algorithms, of course, are so at the heart of so many concerns people have about young people and the internet, anybody in the internet actually. They are not designed for our well-being. They are designed to keep us stuck on a site as long as possible. In fact, they're not even that is exactly what they're designed for. That's exactly what the instruction is. And the algorithm is neutral as to whether showing you extreme and inappropriate content matters or not. It would be nice if the companies realised that and did something about it. The algorithm's just kind of doing what it's there to do. How do you talk about this with kids?
Yeah, well, we go kind of right back to the basics of what an algorithm is, and really it's just like a set of instructions that can be followed. Like there's an algorithm for tying your shoelace. There's like a algorithm for baking a cake. That's what's in the the Women's Weekly, the cake book recipes. Is actually just an algorithm. But the algorithms online to show us content, if we're on socials or anywhere where it's kind of algorithmically moderated, which is increasingly a lot of the net these days, is designed to show us stuff that exactly. Keeps us engaged, keeps us scrolling past more ads because that's how they make money. And you're exactly right. The tricky thing about them is that what keeps us scrolling isn't always in our best interests. Sometimes like anxiety will keep us scrolling, or feeling scared will keep us scrolling, or feeling angry will keep us scrolling. Also funny things and cat videos and things that are genuinely entertaining or informative and educational. But to the algorithm, it doesn't really matter, and they are so good. That there's a great saying: every time you put your phone down, there's thousands of the world's best paid engineers trying to make you pick it back up again, and they're really good, and our brains are really soft, and we have this almost like infinite capacity to want to be liked and affirmed and validated and entertained and connected to the people that we love and beyond. And in some way, they're kind of using that. They're hijacking that a little bit to keep us online, and they're really effective. The average adult in the Western world spending more than 2 hours a day on their phone, more than 2,000 individual touches of their phone, taps and swipes. We touch them, we're engaged with them. We touch them more than we touch anything else. So they're really good, and it's tricky. And I'm no different. I'm hooked as well. But if we can learn about it, then I think it's helpful, and that's what the book tries to do.
What are the kids you talk to in the process of this? How do they receive this? Again, it's if you make it interesting And if it's not finger waggy, then that's a
Okay.
start. But all of us face the challenge of knowing some of these things, and yet there's a difference between knowing and intervening when we know they are affecting us. What was the sort of feedback you got from the young people you were talking to as you were preparing it?
Yeah, I think though it was I think they're curious, they're engaged, they know something's up. They know, I mean, they see adults, they see us scroll, they see people on public transport, everyone's like on their phones, and every like spare minute someone's checking their device, 85 times a day on average, for an adult. And they see it, certainly before they get a phone, and I think that makes them want to get one, whenever there's a chance to get online. So they're aware. They see their older siblings on it. Um, they appreciate the kind of addictiveness of it. I think kids know that, oh, like the game's really great. I don't want my brain to rot too much. So there's certainly an awareness, but you're right. Like it's hard to, even though we know we're being like sucked in, like it's hard to stop ourselves from doing it.
So you've
Um,
talked about the science of dopamine with them as well, which again is
yeah,
always good to know. Again, it's not going
yeah,
to stop us wanting the hits, but they
no.
are learning that that's what's going on with them, yeah?
Yeah, and I think if you can put a name to it and understand your own response to it, oh, this is how are you feeling after you're online or after you're scrolling or after you game. There's usually like I think for parents across the world, there's always that moment. After you turn the TV off, there's like like some kind of meltdown or regulation that they've got to get back into the real world from. And so I think if we can help name these things and be aware of them, it's the first step to be able to correct them. So yeah, it's chatting about them. It's hearing from other kids. So one of the things we do in the book is like put heaps of kids quotes in there, and sometimes they're the best, so resonant and in the best language that better than I could come up with, and it's great. So I think, yeah, peer learning is helpful. One thing we talk about in the book is a family technology agreement. So instead of it being like, hey kids, get off your thing, it's like, oh, how do we talk about this all together? Are there times when you want me to be off my device, or that we all need to be off our devices together, or this is how we're going to use them? There's some templates in the book. There's some wonderful content out there, online. Australia has an e-safety commissioner that's putting out a really great a bunch of content about how to be safe and how to engage with the internet. But yeah, having that shared conversation, I think, is the right approach.
Let's come back to what you were saying earlier about gaming, and you point out that 1 in 5 young people have experienced in-game bullying through game chats. They can also be, again, I mean, it's a place where kids communicate and they sometimes seem to have mates all over the world, but they can
Yeah.
also be a place where, again, those wanting to perhaps use the access for purposes that are not healthy for those kids can also find their way
Yeah.
in through the door. So can we just
Yeah.
talk about a little again about some of the ways they can make gaming work for them? I think you've touched on some of it, like whether it's the family agreement or the deal that a parent has with a kid, agreed switch off times, right? What are some of the other things that you advise for them to have safer gaming, better gaming?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's being conscious of the times that you're gaming. And one thing you can do is chat with you. Like often, one of the most kind of addictive or engaging things about gaming is that you're doing it with your mates. Like I know it's happening more in schools. They're like chatting about games during school, and then they're going home and then they're playing them. And if you can have a shared conversation about, oh, like I can only do it on like Wednesday arvos or Friday arvo, whatever it might be. There's an agreed time. Then there's a better expectation that you're not always missing out. You're doing it together at the same time, and you're not missing out if you're not on there. I think there's really good guardrails on who you chat with and how you chat. If you don't know who they are, be mindful of sharing information about yourself. Be mindful of using your full name. And I think that's where I think parents have a real opportunity to get on there and game a little bit with their kids. Spend time with their kids doing that. Like
Things like
sometimes it's
turning
really
off
easy.
turning off the chat function is one option
Oh,
if you're not liking the way it's going.
totally, exactly. I,
Passwords.
I think. Yep. Passwords, safety controls. Your parents can help you with that.
Oh, and the good old
Being mindful
in-game
about in-app
purchases.
in-game
We need to
purchases. That's
discuss
right.
these.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's how they make their money. Often these games are free to play, but there's a lot of money that can be made by
Who,
the games
who hasn't
through
had their
in-game
Mastercard
purchases.
raided by again by an
Yeah,
innocent kid who just didn't know what was going on?
yeah, exactly. And it's so engaging. So yeah, get on there with your kids if you can. I think the other thing we talk about in the book is often there are real world alternatives to the things that games are giving to you. So if you're like your kids are into Minecraft, maybe they'd be to building like a little shelter or a cubby outside, out the back, or if they're into like go-kart race, racing, then maybe they'll be into making a go-kart, or if they're into Fortnite, maybe check out your local archery range, or there's other things that outside that scratch the same itch. They take maybe a bit more time, a bit more investment in time from parents, but can be a helpful way to guide interests outside too.
I love the way you also just help them with things that in the default setting are probably all set to be go, how to use do not disturb mode, how to turn off notifications, get rid of the dings, all these sorts of things, but also just judging the content and how it's making you feel. And again, we can train those algorithms in some ways, can't we?
We can,
but in terms of what we are feeding them by choice.
Actually, it's one of the interesting things talking with young people, and there's a great researcher I spoke with as well. Young people are almost treating their algorithm as like a thing that needs to be protected and curated, and it's like almost like a pet. You're like, oh, I don't want to look at that. That's gonna mess up my algorithm.
Get out of my algorithm.
Exactly. There's awareness of that.
Yeah.
I think that the default settings are incredibly important, and it's a minefield, and it's a lot of it's tricky, there's you have to really burrow into the settings to turn some of this stuff off. And like the real answer in the far future should be safety by design and privacy by design, and opt in instead of opt out. But I think there is probably a role and a growing obligation on parents to become a little bit more savvy about those controls, about what can be stopped and what can be switched off and what can't. What to do, I think it's helpful to talk about with your kids. What to do if you find yourself in funny situations. If you got some text coming from someone that don't feel quite right, or if you're having interactions that are leading you in a different place, or people, and being upfront about it, people asking you for inappropriate content, nude photos, like this is happening online. What happens if you come across inappropriate content, or you stumble upon some websites, which is so easy to do for young, curious minds? What to do if you find yourself in those situations? What's okay to feel and how to respond? Who to go to, who to talk to. We talk about having a trusted safety network of adults, and I think there's a role there. It's a tricky space, but to have those honest conversations with young people about what can happen online, and what are some of the things that you can do, what are some of the guide rails you can put in place to stay safe. Oh, you still there? I lost you. Oh, no.
I was just thinking, sorry, I just forgot to turn my microphone on. Simple technology that, but still. I love the way you pose some of the questions, like, if YouTube, Instagram and TikTok are all free, how come their owners are some of the richest people on the planet? I mean, these are some of the things that spark kids thinking, right? Rather than just telling them stuff. Yeah.
That's one. Yeah.
How on earth are you approaching the whole AI question, which all of us are trying to get our heads around, and all of us are trying to keep up with? But how do you approach this in the book?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fast-moving space, and we try to be really honest about that. AI can do so much. I mean, computing has been able to do so much for a long time, and increasingly the amount that it can replicate what humans do is growing. It will continue to grow. It's feeling like it's accelerating. We talk about what it is. It's hard to know. Is it conscious? Will it be conscious? These are tricky questions. But what is certain is that it will be, what it can do will accelerate. What is certain is that at some point it will start to be monetized. We're kind of at the early stages of AI where it is not monetized. Like back in the day, the internet was a little bit like that. Now, all the search is monetized in some kind of way. And it's likely that the billions of dollars that are going into AI investment are going to be wanting to be kind of clawed back in some way. Certainly, that's without doubt. When that monetization happens, I think that'll be something to watch out for.
That is an understatement, given how much has been invested. Yeah,
so much. I think there are some dangers that we should be aware of with chatting, and with young people are turning them for very intimate conversations or therapeutic conversations. I think there are guide rails that we should put in place. I mean, I think probably the onus is on the companies to do that properly, but I think regulation is always a few steps behind. So the guide rails are probably on us to say, well, what's helpful, what's not. How do these things work? To lifting a little bit the lid on how they're trained. Talking about the nuts and bolts of large language models and machine learning. I think having a little bit of an awareness of what's under the hood can demystify it, can kind of magicify it to be this all-powerful, all-intelligent uh, companion. And if we can be aware of that, I think that helps us a little bit too from becoming too dependent in the wrong ways, and to use them in the right ways. And well, it's such an early days, so who knows where it's going to go? But yeah, it's a tricky one.
I'm
It's a tricky part,
fascinated that
actually.
both you and your co-author are physicists. Is there anything in this, or is it just a coincidence that?
I don't know. Yeah, Ashka is fantastic. Like she drew all the pictures there, and yeah, we're gonna do some cool stuff I think going forward. But yeah, she did her PhD in physics. I did mine too. I don't know. I think we kind of went out, and then we both did science shows, and then to little kids, I used to do it across Western Australia, shows about slime and bubbles and energy and things to primary school kids, and then we kind of took that love back into communicating to young people, and we connected for this book. And we've got a couple of other touch points actually. It's a she illustrated WikiLeaks's hourglass logo actually, for curious, and something that I engaged with in the different parts of my life as well. So there's a couple of resonances, but no, I think we came together really beautifully for the book. She yeah, the illustrations just make it some great design from UQP, University of Queensland Press, and yeah, I think it's a yeah. Hopefully, it can find young people and be of use to them.
Good on you. Thank you for your time. That is Dr. Niraj Lal, who is co-author of this book we've just discussed. It is called Behind the Screens. Clever. And he is also a host of the ABC Kids podcast, Imagine This. But it's actually aimed for young people, broadly ranged 8 to 13, although a lot of adults will probably get a hell of a lot of it as well. Just giving them the basics on what they need to know about how the internet works.